creepy uncle. Now, this happened almost 20 years ago when I was 15 and still living back home with my grandmother and uncle. To provide some context, my grandparents had built a house together with their son. Grandparents living at ground level, their son, my uncle, living upstairs. They pretty much built the house with their bare hands and with the help of family members. So for my uncle that meant working his 9-to-5 job, then driving to the construction site and working there until late in the night. They did this for almost 2 years, and I guess due to the stress of working non-stop, plus an ugly divorce he was going through shortly before finishing the house, he first became weird, which I guess turned into some type of psychosis. He stopped going to work because everyone there was watching him. No one was allowed to open windows to let fresh air in because someone could break in. All doors in the house had to be locked because otherwise gas would enter the rooms and catch fire. Nonsense stuff like that. At the time when I was about 15 years old, I lived with them for a few years. Grandmother and uncle. Grandfather had died in the meantime, and even though my uncle never did anything bad, he was still eerie and I was regularly freaked out by him. For example, he had the habit of silently standing in the pitch-dark hallway in the middle of the night for God knows how long. Sometimes I would watch TV in the living room late at night, thinking everyone was already sleeping. When I got tired, I would switch off the TV and open the door to the hallway and scream with terror because he would be standing directly behind the door, in the dark. This happened frequently. He always acted surprised that I would get scared because in his mind he was just keeping watch. Something else he did that I absolutely hated. Sometimes when I was sleeping in my room, he would randomly barge in and check if everything was all right. And when I say barge in, I mean that. He would rush in almost as if he was expecting something bad happening to me. Now that you got some idea of his weird behavior, let me explain that one creepy night. I was laying in my bed, sleeping. Ordinary night. I don't know how late it was, but from my feeling I would say I had slept for a couple of hours when I suddenly woke up. I don't really know what woke me. There had been no noise or anything, but for some reason I woke up instantly terrified with my heart pounding, eyes wide open. My breathing was fast and loud, so I tried to keep it down to listen. I stayed like that for a couple of minutes, until I convinced myself that I just had a nightmare I couldn't recall. But then I heard something outside of my bedroom in the hallway. The bedroom door was closed. It was the distinct creaking of one particular step of the stairway. The third one from the top to be exact. So naturally I thought it must be my uncle following his habit of creeping about the house in the middle of the night. But a few seconds after that creaking, I heard super fast steps, literally sprinting from the stairs, getting louder and louder until they came to a sudden halt directly in front of my door. I couldn't move, I couldn't scream, I just froze and held my breath, half expecting my uncle to barge in at any second. But nothing. No movement, no steps, no breathing. I thought, but it must be my uncle and he must be standing right in front of my door. But somehow, I was also convinced that it couldn't have been him. I knew exactly how his steps sounded since I had heard them often enough. Also, the steps were unnaturally fast, with a very sudden halt by the door. If a person ran that fast, it would have been impossible to come to such a sudden halt. They would have crashed into the door. Until this day, I cannot explain what happened that night, and what these god-awful steps were. A lucid dream, maybe? I don't know, it still freaks me out.